Hi guys, hi again, it's story time 6. Okay, sometime after my Nana was gone, my mom and my grandpa and I were eating dinner together in the dining room, and I had some cousins that lived in the house behind us. They had their own dinner time, so our doors were like probably locked at this time. So I think it was around this time I was starting to eat in the living room to watch TV while I was eating, because my mom thought it was like things like that distracted me from like the sorrow of losing my grandma. This time I wish I would have stayed in the dining room, but I passed that swinging door between the dining room and the living room. Between those two rooms, my grandpa's room door was wide open and you could see into it from the living room. And this was a 10 by 10 room, so it was pretty small. But I saw on my side vision, then full straight on, a man that looked like my grandpa's twin, standing like a statue. I saw the back of his head and the rest of his tall body. He was facing that window from my first story time. You know, the window that I saw the witch in. He was staring right out the window from the inside of Tata's room, where I was standing when I was frozen in fear. I knew it wasn't him because he was eating at the table in the other room. I think I spun on my heel and went to tell my mom. She got spooked, but not as much as I did, because I planted my plate on the table and didn't want to be alone. We discussed it, and my mom told me that my grandpa's brother looked very similar to him. He had passed away years before I was born, so I never met him. She alluded that since he's family, he'd never hurt me or scare me. That made me feel a little less scared. But years later, I heard about doppelgangers or mimics, and even had another encounter years later. More to come, including some other family stories, so don't be afraid to follow and comment. Oh, and yeah, excuse that little rash right there. Something new. Okay, hi again. So this is one of the odd stories that took place outside of my home. This was at school. I attended 4th Avenue Junior High School in Yuma, Arizona. I was in English class, and the entire class was reading silently to themselves an Edgar Allan Poe book. But I think it had a collection of his stories, just like this one book, everyone had. Yeah, and I remember getting accustomed to my classmates being slightly younger than me because I had to repeat 7th grade. I had just barely scraped through the prior year dodging bullies. Excuse my dog there. She's not a bully. Well, this crisp fall or winter day, I was looking at some girl, Tiffany's boots, her shoes, and thinking to myself, how does she walk in those so easily? They have a heel on them, and if I tried to walk in them, I'd twist my ankle in a heartbeat. I kept being distracted looking at them, but my judgy/jealous side of me decided, hey, get back to your reading. It's more interesting than these witchy-looking boots. So back to reading. I started getting into the story, and it seems everyone was on task, and reading was so enjoyable. All of a sudden, I see a little bitty light in the crease of the book between the pages. You know what I mean? Right in the center. That light morphs into a normal size flame. Looks like one does after you spark up a match or a lighter on a light flame. I keep the book on the desk and slowly turn my head to see if anyone else is noticing it. If anyone else sees it. But no, I was totally ignored. So I assume nobody was witnessing this. Just me. There's no smoke, no burn marks happening. I stare at the little flame in the book, and it's not extinguishing itself. So I close it, and by now I'm too freaked out to read that book again. I don't remember if I told the teacher what happened, but I don't think so, because at this age I never spoke up, and I doubt they would have believed me. I've always been nervous reading or watching anything involving Poe. You see why. There are more story times coming. Have you seen anything, especially like outside of your home, paranormal? Stay tuned for more. Bye. Hey guys, it's me again. Okay, so around this time I have been starting to see a child psychologist for my depression and anxiety. I found a therapist I was very compatible with. She had many art supplies, got me in tune with new music I would have never discovered on my own. She lent me a videotape of a movie. It was an 80s version of The Secret Garden. It was a good movie and pulled me right in. I finished the movie and noticed that I wasn't distracted because I enjoyed it so much. And as I was collecting my wrappers of the snacks that I was guaranteed that I was consuming with the film, I sat back on the couch and was feeling like my throat was seizing up or something. I was so glad my mom wasn't at work like she usually was. Otherwise, I don't think I would be here today. Mom responded to my gasping and ran over to my side and watched me as I felt like my body was being taken over by another being. I was under the impression that my face was contorting to someone else's. I tried talking, and I think I managed to talk, but was so separated from myself that I don't know if I had a different voice, but that seems like maybe a likely possibility. I remember hearing a froggy, grumbly voice, like a male voice, coming out of my mouth. I saw my hands making a prayer hands expression to my mom, who of course started praying the Lord's Prayer until the spirit gave up and was ejected out. I remember vomiting out air. Nothing physically came out, but I was myself again. Later, my mom asked me what I was watching. I was just like, this is just a kid's movie. So just like Poe, that book and movie I tend to avoid. It's stupid, but I know it's just these things that want to stay in my life for some reason. And okay, that last sentence came out of nowhere when I was writing it to share with you guys here. Am I automatic writing now? Okay, so in this story time, I'll tell you about the time that my emotions got a weird physical reaction. I was in the beginning or the middle of my terrible teens era and fighting with my mom about something. I honestly don't remember why. I was probably dealing with stress from school, hangry, whatever, and I cussed. Not my first time by now. And right after I did, I walked over and was standing in my grandpa's bedroom doorway. I looked in there angrily, and his lamp bolts up in the air and smashes up against the wall. I remember still being so angry, so it wasn't fazing me. Maybe I was used to this creepy stuff happening around me by now. Mom heard it, and I think I answered her rudely that it wasn't me. I didn't touch the lamp. I think she told me to get lost so she could clean up the shards. I probably walked to the sofa to chill out afterwards and thought about maybe the presence was upset about how, my horrific attitude and just negative energy helped it manifest it in that way. So, yeah, that's the very first time that physically something did that, like that, another object. All right. For more, follow. Thank you guys. I was just asking for it, I guess, at this point. Like, what is the matter with me? I was at my friend's house. This friend I knew since 4th grade. We were put together by the teacher for a study collab. We happened to be the 2 quietest students. I know they say it's always the quiet ones. So we had been friends for like 6 solid years at this time. I was dabbling in tarot cards and the Ouija. I was the dummy that broke all the rules. Were there always written rules in the box? I don't know. Back to the story time. I was at this friend's house and we were goofing around in her room. I must have gotten bored or something and constructed a Ouija board made out of a pizza box. We were alone in her room. Her brothers and sisters were probably eating in her kitchen or dining room. Well, when it was ready and we had our fingers on the planchette, I was so surprised that 1, my friend had participated at all. 2, that the planchette was moving at all. We probably asked the usual typical teenage questions. What boy liked us at school? How many kids would we have? Etc. I have no idea what we asked when a strong wind came through the window that was very much closed, blew the curtains around, and her Debbie Gibson calendar on the wall fell right off. We probably looked like total idiots running out of the room, and of course, failing to close out the session. We were so freaked out. I remember not going back in, but my poor friend must have had to clean up that mess. The things we did was so stupid. I think we both regret that. I think she made me take it home with me, so I did. Another stupid idea. I'm sure if I had tossed it in the trash, it would have just teleported to my house a few blocks south. For more spooky story times, follow. Bye.